there's something that really, I think, beyond any form of Democratic versus Republican party animosities, there has to be understood a certain kind of tacit admission that's been made. The Biden administration has fundamentally set up the new government of Afghanistan, led by, not so much even the Taliban, but really, if I remember, it's Pashtuns. It's really like kind of the group that is sort of the dominant ethnic group. Now, I might have that wrong. I don't think it's the minority ethnic group. I really do think that, if I remember right, it is the majority ethnic group, and that really the modern Afghanistan of the 50s, that if you look back to the 50s, 60s, and 70s, Kabul was a very modern place with modern, women with their hair out, women in the workforce wearing Western clothes. And there were clubs that served alcohol. So now it's been within, a very, very short time, within only about 2 weeks. And even as the Taliban was taking, it was slowly moving toward Kabul. They had already had agreements with China openly, that China had already openly courted them. They were showing up to diplomatic affairs to talk with the Chinese government about this, that, or the other. So the trouble you end up having is that no matter what is said, the tacit agreement is fundamentally it's been handed over to Russia and China, and their cobalt, I believe it's cobalt, and a number of other very valuable minerals, and their deposits are now going to be that the Afghanis are going to trade quite lucratively with China and Russia, and those two countries can fundamentally either benefit from the opium trade, or they could just crush it. Either way, they win. That's the beauty of it. Either of those is extremely good and advantageous for them. If they crush opium production, the help of the Taliban, and try to open up other forms of markets, they actually end up defeating much of fundamentally the West's need by addiction for opiates. This is whether they let it go on or whether they crush it, it's still it's now it's up to them. It's their game. They just got to see what works for them and their Taliban affiliates and associates now. So, and a lot of the major media outlets throughout the Western world, throughout the developed world, are obviously trying to figure out what to say about the Taliban. They're not really. They're trying to maintain something almost like a friendly relationship, like, oh, they're going to, don't worry, they're not going to be as bad as they were. That seems to almost be the idea. Anyway, what Biden unfortunately has shown, and now people who are moderate Democrats, this is about time to face that. Why would he have done something that so easily would have been understood? I mean, that you would have seen it in the news, that this would benefit Russia and China. This would be just flat out would benefit Russia and China. And now the beauty of it is that Russia can put as much pressure via Tajikistan and Kyrgyzstan and I'm forgetting the other one. But basically, there's other Muslim nations in their sphere that they could put a lot of pressure on Afghanistan. They could actually take sections of Afghanistan as a buffer zone, a safety buffer zone, with the help of their surrounding allies, which I think is very, very, very likely. I think that as time goes on, because historically that's what Russia has to do. Historically speaking, it has to secure a space, because it's so easy to physically get into Russia from neighboring nations, and so difficult to push those forces back out, because of how the terrain changes once you're out of the steppes and have to go in to push people back into the mountains. So there was always this sort of area of rumor that was not so much rumor, that people found all over the internet, the various videos of Hunter Biden, and that these had obviously been something leaked by various by various elements that knew that this was going, where they would cash in on this when they needed to. That all they had to do was wait until it got worse and worse and worse. Wait for the right moment to be like, oh, there's an entire, we have like all the dirt on this guy. And then there's this, that Russia, to exploit also Joe Biden, there's one of the dirtiest of the secrets that wasn't even a secret. Then it was that the Maidan had elements of these the Svoboda Party, the Banderites, the followers of the ideology of Stepan Bandera, and the Azov Battalion, and that this has gone almost totally uncovered in most media, even though you can find endless numbers of reports on these people, because they were basically a outright neo-Nazi brigade that was very likely committing atrocities or war crimes against civilians, and that they were a big part of the purging of non-Ukrainians from Ukrainian territory during the Maidan and the junta of this government that was supposedly so horribly corrupt and liked the Russians, was Russian allied. And nothing came of this, and that the American media instead started, and to the point where we even prosecuted people in the United States who had gone over there to fight with the Azov Battalion. Again, something that oddly enough nobody would bring up, and that you can almost really find almost anything that would be a democratic outlet that brought this up, even though you would think that this would be a significant story. These people who you could see in kind of pro-Trump protests or pro-Trump rallies here and there, and that they eventually get arrested for fighting with neo-Nazis, a neo-Nazi brigade. You would think that this would be absolute platinum, absolute gold to criticize Trump supporters, but for some reason this story just died on the vine. Nobody wanted to talk about the Azov Battalion, and you just put in images of the Azov Battalion, and you will always find people giving the Roman salute. Lots of, when there, even the imagery from the Olympics, when Putty Riot had shown up and were demonstrating, and suddenly these guys came out and started kicking and beating them, but most importantly whipped them, and were whipping them with Cossack whips. So this was blamed on Russians, even though these were Cossack whips. And then when you look at the patches on these security people's uniforms, they are patches that are from the Ukrainian nationalists. So these were basically neo-Nazis. And that this was an incredible photo op that still to this day has not really been addressed. But I've found almost nobody who's really ever addressed it. So a lot of people have to understand that there is very likely a way that the Chinese and Russians have something probably on the Democrats and totem. Like, they really have dirt on these people, that they have a lot of information that is very sensitive to Democrats, stuff that the Democrats have done overtly and covertly to help China. Russia probably has dirt. Now we know that supposedly one of the laptops of Hunter Biden, with him doing all kinds of drugs and sex and stuff, that that ended up in the hands of some Russians, and that's a widely reported story. And so this is really something that people have to kind of get, that this looks like a certain tacit admission of this on the part of the Biden administration, that they know that they have to do certain things to sort of keep Russia from completely ruining the game for them. And I just wanted to put that out there, because it's sad. It's not like a ha look, we win, your side doesn't. No, this is, everybody's losing because of this. Nobody's really winning because of this. And then with Russia getting the Nord Stream 2 deal with Germany, this is, anybody who really is has some kind of opposition to Vladimir Putin in some way, you've gained kind of less than nothing out of it. And I think really that it's kind of time that a lot of people sort of get that idea, that obviously there's been, somebody got played, and it's, not only is it kind of the American voter, but that we're all getting played by a larger propaganda and power game, that we're not in the club. And we're not in the club. As George Carlin said, we're not in the club. And now, one of the most important is in no longer pumping our own oil, and no longer in trying to restrict our own extraction of coal. We become more and more. Now we're actually going to be importing more oil from Russia and more oil from Saudi Arabia and the Middle East. And also, this eventually is going to mean that we're going to probably be importing petroleum products that have been that are under Israeli control from the Syrian Mediterranean territory that was seized by Israel in the name of protecting everybody from ISIS. And so the Pentagon and the war machine and the big banks, they all win. They're the ones who are going to win, and the Palestinians will get nothing. None of this is going to end up where any cause by the left end of the Democrats is going to come true, maybe other than you sort of feel like you've pwned the Trumpers. And that's going to be sad. It's going to be very sad as you realize more and more, like, everything kind of keeps getting worse. So I just wanted to put that out there, because if what you want is a certain kind of outcome, it's just, you're not going to get it now. There's no way around it, because the money talks, and the way that the pieces are all lining up, you're just simply not going to get the political outcomes that you were hoping for in any way, shape, or form. And it's just going to take more and more time and then it's the exhaustion. It's being just exhausted by not understanding why everything keeps going the way that it does. That's a big part of this. Why does everything keep getting worse? And so just putting that out there.